So, sticking with the Ratliff family, the obvious Handjob brothers need to be discussed. Yeah, that's you just opened my eyes to something that I wasn't thinking, which is that because of the gun and his interrupted suicide and everything, I was thinking of death in the very literal sense. But what you just said made me think that they're almost certainly talking about some sort of metaphorical death, the death of his previous self, which would allow a new self to be born from that. He'll have.
Chelsea is quickly emerging as one of my favorite characters in the show. Something about her reaction to Saxon, it was just so wonderfully honest and innocent, as we've said.
A little nudge from someone can push you on a path that you're better off for, and then you're able to do the same for someone else after that in a way that they would not have been able to do for themselves. And there's something that I really like about seeing that potential ripple effect amongst these characters. Pretty shocking start to the episode. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, as I think is what most viewers probably felt. And it felt so out of character for the show. I'm like, wow, this is a brutal, gruesome opening. And I couldn't help but think, and I called it totally wrong. No redemption arc for him. He just kills himself in the next scene in the show.
Mm.
And that was pretty clever of them. And then, the next time they did that later on, I didn't flinch, but they totally got me in the beginning.
Yeah, I was like, "Shit, I'm not ready to be traumatized this evening." Like, I'm not
Yeah.
looking for something this intense to happen, and I was not thinking, "No, this is impossible." I was thinking, "This show surprises us all the time, and so this is what's happening, and we're just gonna have to accept it and let the trauma wash over us for a while, and then I guess we'll be used to it, and we'll be, back on the beach with the girls or something like that." But,
Yeah.
whew, this is a heavy way to start. I was
Yeah.
relieved and a little pissed off that they did this as soon as they made it, into his fantasy.
Yeah. I kind of respect him for doing it because I do like it's, like a dip in a roller coaster that you weren't expecting or something where you're like, you got me, you son of a bitch, but it was kind of, thrilling at the same time. And I think I'm relieved that that wasn't true. That would have been a really disappointing turn for the show. Um, and so I think they knew what they were doing, and they totally got us. Um, so yeah, I guess we can start talking about Timothy. It doesn't totally seem to me like he's going with the redemption arc based on a few things that we saw. So I'll mention those, and you can let me know what you think. So, firstly, we see him talking to the guru, as Victoria would put it, and it almost felt like he was indirectly talking him into suicide. He's like, "Death is a beautiful coming home. It's not something that should be feared. It should be embraced." Which, as he was saying that, I was thinking, this is the last thing that Timothy needs to be hearing right now, because I would expect that what he's talking about when he's saying that is not a suicide, but more just the end of one's life, or to not live in fear, but not to necessarily take those matters into your own hands. Um, I don't think he would be suggesting suicide to him. And then the other piece was, against all odds, Gaitok actually found the gun in the room.
Uh-huh.
So it seems like Timothy might have been talked back into taking his own life. He's going to go to find the gun, only to see that it's missing. So
Yeah.
they've got me totally confused on where this is going. It does seem like he's back on board with ending things potentially. Aside from the one piece, which is that he had a positive interaction with this person, which I think has shown him that he can hope to find some comfort, despite how everything seems to him. So yeah, I'm confused. What do you make of what we're seeing with Timothy right now?
I didn't see it the way you did. I actually see him well within his redemption arc right now. I'm liking him throughout the episode. I'm feeling for him really deeply, but I'm liking
Hmm.
him a lot. You can see more honesty in his eyes. It's almost like he's just being crushed. He's got like this weight on him that's crushing him, and in that tiny space that he has left, there's some life, there's some reflection. I mean, it's kind of like, in the moments before you die, what you think about. That's kind of where he's at. I mean,
Yeah,
he's nearly at like the end of his life as he knows it,
yeah,
and
true.
he's processing. Um, I really liked his conversation with Victoria. where he says, I think it would make Piper resilient. Right? Shouldn't kids be resilient? Like, yeah, that was a
Mhm.
good parenting statement he made. He
Mhm.
expressed a value that is a good value. I think objectively, kids should know what it's like to not have comfort, so they could survive in the world in moments when they don't have comforts, and so that they don't need to live at a certain standard that they may not be able to control at some point.
Yeah.
So I liked it, and she couldn't get there, and it just kind of showed that she is not resilient. She's just the thing that Piper is trying not to be, and that he was saying it would be good if our kids weren't. She was just like, yeah, I am that way, and so she showed herself once again as a really limited character, and
Mhm.
he showed that he can rise above that. He knows that there's more to it. Um, so yeah, I'm liking him.
We'll get right back to the video, but first we just want to remind you that if you're enjoying the discussion, to please like and subscribe, as it really helps out a smaller channel like ours. Additionally, we do a podcast on the channel called Men's Search for Meaning, where we explore and get into all kinds of relatable things about life. It's a lot of fun, so if you want to spend some more time with us, check out those episodes too after this one, and let's get back to it. Yeah, you just opened my eyes to something that I wasn't thinking, which is that because of the gun and his interrupted suicide and everything, I was thinking of death in the very literal sense. But what you just said made me think that they're almost certainly talking about some sort of metaphorical death, the death of his previous self, which would allow a new self to be born from that. He'll have to contend with the consequences of decisions that he made. He
Yeah,
gambled and he lost, but that doesn't mean that everything has to be over if you can approach the next part of your life with some flexibility to be like, all right, there's going to be a shakeup here. Things are going to be different, but that doesn't mean that I can't enjoy my life potentially even more than I did before. And that's a fascinating concept in and of itself because he's so ingrained in what his current life is. And so is Victoria, and she's a lot less flexible. But like, for example, he could move to Thailand and be like a fisherman and love his life, if he can allow himself to adjust. And that's such an interesting an interesting concept. And in that sense, it really would be a death of his former self, but that doesn't mean that he ceases to exist. It just means that a different version is potentially more in touch with what he actually cares about and wants could take his place. And I think that would be the best thing we could expect to see for him.
yeah. It made me think about whether I'd be capable of totally starting over from scratch. And as I was ruminating on that, I was like, I think I would be able to. I think there would be just a tremendous sense of loss, almost like I would do anything to prevent that if I like
Hmm.
lost everything in my life. But I
Hmm.
would survive, and that would be a testament to my human spirit, my resilience. I mean, it's just a bit of a romanticized thought that I was having, but it was a good reflection. I was glad the show made me think about that.
Yeah, it's a really interesting concept, and I wasn't thinking about it in that way at the time. So it's nice to come to this conclusion now. Yeah, so I would actually love to see Timothy adjust to some more basic life, probably in a different country, I guess, because I don't know, maybe he needs that change of pace, but I think that would be one of the most exciting stories in the season if he was just like was able to release his life, which was kind of put onto him. It doesn't even feel like he chose it, but it was chosen for him. He never
Yeah,
even considered it. And now that this shake up from a bad gamble that he made could turn out to be one of the better things that happens to him, where he could actually become himself, or really be able to ask himself, what is it that I want to do, instead of what am I expected to do, like all the expectations that he has referred to and is extremely stressed by. So yeah, very very cool angle. I'm glad that you brought that up because it allowed me to see it differently, and I much prefer thinking about death in the metaphorical sense for his story than literal.
good. I'm glad. Yeah, I mean, it's obviously going to be a complicated road ahead. I also hope for that. I've been predicting that he'll stay in Thailand with Piper and become, a part of the monastery or something. Because what other choice does he have, except for
Yeah.
that pesky thought of extradition that you put in my head, which is
Yeah.
absolutely the realistic thing that I expect would happen since there are extradition laws in Thailand that apply to the U.S.
Hmm.
Um, but I would like that for him, and yeah, that would. I'm glad his kids are grown. That would involve him having to say, "I won't see you for a long time."
Hmm.
And as for Victoria, I mean, I know that he loves her. I want to be sympathetic to that, even though she's, you know, my least favorite character, I would say.
Hmm.
Um, you know, he's still been with her, and he knows her as a more vulnerable person before she became so set in her ways, I'm sure. But yeah, maybe he would, you know, have to acclimate to not being with her because I don't think she would, as she herself says, I don't think she would take well to losing everything. Like he would have to, and I think she would probably run to another partner that could provide for her survival.
Yeah. You're making me think of another thing now, which is that each person in this chain that we're kind of looking at right now needed some sort of leader to set them on that path. Like for Piper, it was the monk whose book she read and the person that she wants to sort of study with staying there. For Timothy, it was Piper. Piper's the one that allowed him to be in a place to think about things differently, and he was heavily resistant to it to begin with, and as time has gone on he seems to be really taking to that. And it's possible that, if that chain continues, that he could be that person for Victoria, because she none of them, I think, maybe totally had it in them on their own, but with a little push from somebody else they were able to. And that's extrapolated, that's a very interesting concept in and of itself, that um you know a little nudge from someone can push you on a path that you're better off for, and then you're able to do the same for someone else after that in a way that they would not have been able to do for themselves. And there's something that I really like about seeing that potential ripple effect amongst these characters, where individually they couldn't have done it.
I like that observation a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So sticking with the Ratliff family, the obvious Handjob brothers need to be, be discussed.
I don't even know what
So
to say about that.
yeah, well, we thought, okay, maybe no one will remember. Everybody remembers.
Mhm.
Maybe nothing really happened. They just kissed. Nope, it got way weirder than that, which is so surprising. And speaking of egos and identities, it seems like Saxon's ego and identity is crumbling to some degree, and he's really scrambling to try to maintain it. He's like trying to say, no, that didn't happen, or that was just a joke, or all these ways of trying to make excuses so he can push this troubling experience away from himself and not have to contend with what it may mean for him, or why it might have happened, or perhaps just what to do with it now that it has happened. But I expect this is another way that the show is exploring the concept of identity and its effects on our life. I guess it's a pretty extreme example to view it in, and one that's hard to watch and hard to hard to watch. It just seems to be another exploration of identity, and yeah, I guess I'm not sure what else to say about that. What do you see that concept in there as well, or are you more struck by other characteristics?
Yeah, I like how you phrased it as his ego is crumbling. I'm just curious what could take its place, like how he could integrate that experience or evolve. What used to be his ego, like what exactly is going to happen. I don't know. I
Yeah,
I'm just really shocked.
doesn't feel like a growth moment in particular.
No, no, it doesn't feel like a growth moment. It's just kind of a shame moment, and like, where will we go from there? Like, what
Hmm.
can he gain from the shame or whatever? Like, we're talking about Timothy evolving spiritually, essentially,
Yeah.
from something deeply shameful and harmful, his freedom being taken away, his resources being removed. I mean, so he's actually going to grow from it. We have the
Hmm.
luxury of being outside the situation. We can say that, but we
Yeah.
have no idea how Saxon could grow from this. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I am.
It do-
Yeah,
oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Oh, it doesn't seem like he's going to grow from it for some reason. I don't know. I totally agree with you that it's hard to see where this could what is any positive thing that could come from this, because it's more of a shameful thing. I mean, I guess Timothy's experience is shameful, but somehow it's allowing him to reach a more evolved state, like you said. I don't see that for Saxon, but it's going to have to resolve somehow, and I truly am at a loss for what that is going to be, because I expect they're going to want to at least have some possible positive angle for it, but I cannot see what that would be.
Yeah,
You know,
I think
what's the
we're
lesson there?
yeah, I think we're pointing to the fact that he's been drawn as a one-dimensional character. He's one of the
Hmm.
few that has. I mean, he's human. We can see his youth. We can see that he's a son of a set of parents, but he's one-dimensional. Like we haven't seen a lot of different sides of him, other than an ego-driven kind of horn dog, masculine guy.
Hmm.
Um, but I mean, I don't know. Maybe we're learning something from the fact that he, when super high or whatever, was willing to be jerked off by his brother. I mean, I just what can we learn from that? We've never seen any indication that he had even a slight closeted feeling of
Yeah.
attraction to men. So I'm just surprised. Like Lachlan, they dropped very clear signals, and Saxon none, not even
Yep.
for a second. Nothing I noticed. So I just don't.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to even believe that that could happen from his perspective.
Yeah. So a couple things are coming to me. One, I feel like they did drop one small piece, one little breadcrumb of a possible bi curiousness or something to him, which is that when he did catch his brother staring at him when he went in the bathroom to jerk off alone in the first episode, he
Yeah.
didn't look surprised. He wasn't like, dude, what the fuck? You know, he just kind of like stared at him and then closed the door, which is not how I would expect someone to react. You know, you would kind of be like, you would be surprised. You wouldn't expect your brother or a friend or someone to be like gazing at you longingly.
Yeah.
You would think they would be like, oh, gross, you know, or like, oh no, even if you're curious, you don't look, or something like that. But he didn't react to that, which is one piece. Um, Another piece that's coming to me is that they seem to be exploring for this family a lot of paradigm shifts or identity changes of Piper kind of breaking out of the box in a big way, kind of almost a 180 from what her family's doing. Lachlan kind of doing that to some degree, because I think, you know, at least in this country, it's still probably difficult for almost everyone to come out as gay. It's like it goes against the expectation that may be there for you, even if an unspoken expectation. So he's kind of breaking out of the mold a little bit in that sense, I suppose. And so that seems to be a common theme in their family, and I wonder if that's going to be the theme for Saxon as well. I would be really surprised if it turned out that he was gay or bisexual as well, or something like that. But at this point, it's possible, and it is supported by things that we've seen. That's the only direction I can see that going in. But yeah.
I think it's very observant of you that you found that. It is true what you're saying. Like I have to agree with the fact that most I would think anyone that is not interested in men in any way, who's a man, would like want to cover themselves and not even go near that subject if they thought they were being looked at, because it's like a real violation.
Hmm.
Um, but he did not, and you're right. So that I just thought of it as sort of dumb kind of openness or something, like well,
Yeah,
whatever or something. But you're
which it
right that
could be.
that
Yeah.
yeah, but that it probably wouldn't be that. So that's
Mhm.
interesting. I do think you have to think really hard to get there, but you did find a little
Yeah.
breadcrumb,
Yeah.
as you said.
Yeah.
Uh,
From watching other shows, I tend to be above average, I would say, at making good predictions. This show is making a liar of me in that sense, because many of my predictions have turned out to be overly complicated theories for what they have going on. So I will
mhm.
definitely be the first to say that I don't have the strongest grasp on what I think they had in mind. So who knows? But yeah, that's probably. Or I guess we can, unless you had any more thoughts on that, we could segue from their story to the next one that I wanted to go over.
Yeah, there's just one thing I wanted to mention that's obliquely related to the brothers, which
Hmm.
is Chelsea is quickly emerging as one of my favorite characters in the show. Something about her reaction to Saxon it was just so wonderfully honest and innocent, as we've said.
Hmm.
And she's also like sympathetic. Like he was just like, "What? I would never do that," and she was just like, "Okay."
Yeah.
There's something about her reaction that I find endearing and just quite honest. So I enjoy her a lot
Yeah.
as a character.
Yeah, I agree. She's at the same time naive and still very much figuring things out, but at the same time, she's a little bit wise beyond her years in sort of unspoken ways. Like she seems to understand people well. She has her own blind spots like we all do, but she does seem to understand people well, and she's confident and she's observant, and yeah, she does have a lot of great qualities, and I hope that we see something important happen with her. She's been enjoyable. She's been a little bit of a background character, so I hope that she has a big moment. I guess I feel like she deserves a bigger moment because she is a likable character and one that has a lot of positive attributes.
Yeah, I'm actually okay if she doesn't have a big moment because she represents something unusual in the show, which is that she's not willing to be corrupted. She doesn't allow
Mm,
herself to be corrupted. And
mhm.
that is unique, actually.
Yeah. And she challenged
Most,
herself too. She came as close as you can come to being corrupted.
Mhm.
In a sense, she was there, she did the drugs, she was in the room with them, and she held her boundaries, which is more respectable than just steering clear right from the get-go. She really
Mhm.
stepped close to temptation and didn't falter.
Yeah, she showed a lot of strength. And I wouldn't say, well, I think it's true there's a bit of naivete, but I almost think of it as like a great trait in this case, that you're not just like totally jaded or something.
Yeah.
And I would do a little parallel with Laurie. I was thinking I like her more this show too, even though it was difficult to watch her become so jealous while not being aware that she was jealous. Laurie, when
Hmm.
she was talking about what Jacqueline did,
Hmm.
I was like, that's a person that is no more, no less than herself, and it was just authentic, and I appreciated that about her.
Hmm. So I guess we can go in two different directions here. We can go to Lori, Jacqueline, and Kate, or we can go from Saxon to the whole Gary situation where he's organizing this dinner party. It seems like he wants to set up a cover for himself so he can have all these people over and say, "Yeah, I had a party. I was here at my house all night," but find a way to slip away and kill Belinda, make it look like an accident or something like that. I feel like they're setting us up for that. So, which of those two feels most appealing to you first?
Uh, Maybe the 3 ladies, Jacqueline, Kate, Laurie.
You really like their story. It seems like there's something that the interpersonal dynamics there seem to draw you in.
Yeah, I do. There's a timelessness to it. I mean, they brought out the theme of it's just like high school, which I think has been
Mm,
an interesting topic, in many people I know's conversations where it's like, are there some really strong parallels from high school,
hmm.
where, people are the way they are, and sure, they evolve, but there's some core characteristics that stay the same. That's,
Hmm.
we don't have to have that discussion like how true or not true it is, but
Hmm.
um, I think I just appreciate the the almost well the I want to say brutality that exists between them in on a social level, which it may just be something about the world of women that I don't totally get, and it may not be all women, but just I
Hmm.
guess friend groups that have like vicious gossip behind each other's back and stuff. And again, I
Hmm.
don't know how frequent it is, but it's definitely something that I've seen plenty in both real life and in movies. And
Yeah.
it's amazing how hurtful they can be to each other while I'm sure loving each other and also just trying to figure out their own lives. But this savaging that takes place of each other and the ability to hurt each other is interesting to me because it is a
Yeah.
part of our culture.
Yeah. I think that gossiping sometimes can be viewed as a certain kind of ferocity. There's an aggression in there of some sort, but I think it's a marker of sensitivity, and that's something that we're seeing with them is that they're all they're all responding poorly. They're all getting their feelings hurt in different ways, and I think they're
Right.
all really yearning for a closer friendship that they just don't have at this point. But I wouldn't say anyone's having a good time. They have moments, but they're
No.
all really hurting in their dynamic. And I think Laurie, they made it very clear that she's upset and hurt that her friend would try to set her up and then take the opportunity for herself. They're making a parallel that this goes back to how she had done things in the past, so there's probably like a stolen boyfriend type thing in their past that
Yeah.
they never really got over. They just stopped talking about it. Then Jacqueline seems to be, insecure. She gets a call from her boyfriend the next morning. Perfectly reasonable explanation for everything that happened, and I think she's like, "Oh shit!" And you made that comment in the last episode about how she's really thirsting for power and control, and the more she reaches for it, the more it slips away from her. The more she moves in to grab it, the more she pulls the rug out from under herself, which is interesting because she's potentially tanking her relationship, while trying um, to have more power and hurting her relationships with her friends at the same time, which end up hurting her back. So it's interesting that as the more she tries to capture power, the more she ends up hurting herself and being less powerful as a result, ultimately.
Yeah, I like that observation, and, although it's hard to find, I do find my way to sympathy for Jacqueline because she has been successful at gaining, power through fame and attractiveness and popularity
Mhm,
over many years of her life, including in high school, and she's seeing her limits as she gets older. And I'm sure she's experienced heartbreak and difficulty throughout all this time. It's not been easy for her. I'm quite certain because it isn't easy for anybody.
mhm,
But, her defense mechanism is just like being above it all and using the power she has. But I think we all know that on some level, that behind that is a tremendous amount of insecurity.
mhm,
And if those walls came down, there'd be a lot of pain behind it. So,
mhm,
um, I'm just kind of using my powers of perception to like get behind those walls a little bit and feel sympathy for her, but she doesn't make it easy, and I do kind of sympathize with her because she doesn't make it
mhm.
easy, and that makes her own life more difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another interesting like sub theme of the show. It's not one of the more obvious ones they're discussing, but this idea of can you feel sympathetic for someone who on the surface is very unlikable? Like
Mhm.
Timothy was a really pretty unlikable person to start, and Jacqueline displays a lot of unlikable characteristics, but I think from what we've seen of both of those two characters, for example, there's a lot of individual pain behind that. Timothy feels like he was pushed into this life and there were all these expectations put on him and he had no choice but um to try to follow through on those for survival. And Jacqueline is probably the same thing, where maybe she was insecure and that caused her to pursue all these opportunities and ways of trying to make herself feel better about herself, which then puts her in a world that's even um, more kind of empty and shallow and perpetuates the same thing. So yeah, that's kind of a cool sub theme that is emerging from this conversation.
Mhm. Yeah, and just I love that. And just one last comment, just about Kate. I kind of enjoyed Kate this episode because she wasn't allowed to get away with her little gossip game. Like Laurie was just like, "Nope, I'm just gonna say
Yeah,
that you ratted out Jacqueline in front of Jacqueline, so you're not gonna get to have your little behind the back game. You're just gonna be called out to your face." And
yeah,
she also was like, "Well, people can be polite," when she was talking to Laurie. Like she was actually expressing a value of hers, and then Laurie basically said, "Well, that makes you fake." And I think that's not totally fair, and it's probably a bit hurtful to Kate. But I was like, "Oh, well, she lives a life where politeness, is important to her, and I appreciate that. That's her." So I had some sympathy for
yeah.
her there too. She wasn't just a cunning character this time.
True. Yeah, it feels like she wants it both ways though, because she was like, we can still have the reputation of being nice and thoughtful and polite, and we can still gossip as long as you follow the one golden rule, which is don't talk about the gossip to the person it's about. So Laurie came in and popped that balloon and was like, "Nope, we're going to bring honesty into this," which
Mm.
forced Kate to contend with how she wants to be perceived as polite, but she also wants to be able to gossip. And I think those things really are at odds with one another, and could contribute to her being a better person or a better character, because she has like the groundwork laid for really being a morally sound person, but she still wants to have a little fun quietly behind the scenes, which is a bit at odds with how she wants to be perceived.
Yeah, it's a great
And
point.
yeah, Laurie forced her to contend with that, and she did not like it.
She did not.
Yeah. All right, so the last big theme going on that I can think of is Gary, Greg. What's his plan? He seems aware of what Chloe was up to, and she tried to lie at first and tried to sort of use her affection to get him to get over some degree of hurt that I guess he was feeling, that his girlfriend, who he provides this incredible life for, still wants to go sleep with someone she just met on his multi-million dollar boat at the same time. So he's pretty hardened on the surface, but I can imagine that doesn't feel very good. And so they had that awkward conversation, and he mysteriously extends the invitation to invite both of them over to his house. We know he's dangerous, we know he's bothered, even though he's pretending not to be, and he's inviting Belinda over as well. So I wonder what's going to happen. It's reminding me a little bit of the Red Wedding episode of Game of Thrones, where
Oof.
that guy invites all these people to dinner under the guise of it being just a dinner party, and then all hell breaks loose. So I wonder. I don't think this will be along those lines at all, but um, the dinner feels like a trap. And he even told her, "I'm going to need your help with something." So there's a plan taking shape here, and Belinda senses it, um, based on other interactions that she's had with him. Saxon seems like he was perfectly happy to accept that. Oh, he's not actually mad,
Hmm.
which
Hmm.
feels very naive to me. Especially as someone who seems like he sleeps around all the time. That he's probably slept with someone's girlfriend before, and they were very upset about it. So I think he should know better that this person wouldn't be bothered. So yeah, what do you think about this whole storyline?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say about it because clearly something's being set up, as you say. And it does seem like he's got a plot that's going to involve, you know, getting rid of somebody or doing something really bad to somebody because he's calculating and cunning, as we saw in the last season.
Mhm.
Um, and, he's
People.
basically saying he's going to do something. And it's like, he said to Belinda, we need to talk. So it's like he's acknowledging that who I am.
Hmm. Hmm.
So there's a lot brewing, but I have no idea what's going to happen because of how good the writers are at surprising us. But one prediction I have is that whatever horrible thing he does, Chloe will stick by him for her own survival and to have a comfortable life. All this, as she said on the boat,
Yeah,
um, which
which was that
that
was a fast. Oh, God.
yeah, I was going to say the same thing you're saying, but please you say it.
Yeah, I was going to say that was a fascinating comment of hers, because there's a juxtaposition between Chloe and Chelsea, who are very different, and Chelsea is navigating her own situation, and her experience is like, I want to stick by this person who treats me poorly because I truly believe that we're meant to be together. And, she's behaving very admirably. Chloe, at the same time, is, sleeping around and only wants to stick with Gary, or, who she knows as Gary, because of the life that he provides for her. She's like, I don't want to have to go back out there, which at first is like, oh, she's insecure about having to meet someone. She's like,
But
look,
look,
look what I have. So it has nothing to do with him or his personality whatsoever. It's like, if she can tolerate it, if she can tolerate him, then she's perfectly fine having that bad of a relationship because of everything that she gets from it, which is stands out even more, as she's standing next to Chelsea in conversation, who's like the opposite.
Yeah, it really does. I don't think much of her character, and I wouldn't be surprised if he like had a red wedding type type moment, which I hope doesn't happen because that's going to be traumatizing again. But
Okay.
and then she just kind of helps clean everything up, and it's just like, okay, that never happened. Let's just go on with our life or something. I
Yeah.
predict that she will continue to be um, a kind of flat, uh, moral less or moral free character.
Yeah, she's a conniving, moralless survivor type character, where it's like she'll do whatever she needs to do to maintain her perception of what safety is, which I think is having all of these things. And I don't think she's able to do anything else. There's no spark of anything different in her at all,
Hmm.
unlike a lot of these other characters that we're seeing at the same time. So, yeah, she seems to be one of those White Lotus characters where what you see is what you get. If anything, she goes deeper down that road, but she does not turn back, and there's no redemption. I wouldn't be surprised if she died either. She just seems like one of those she's almost like a storytelling device where she's not even that important as a character. She's there to move other things along, and she's kind of like disposable in that sense. And it's not a judgment of her personality, but I think in the story that we're within, I think she exists to further other people, other storylines, or to develop other characters, and that she's largely expendable. Not that you could tell the story without her, but that she's not she's an NPC in the story, if you will.
I like that. Basically, agree.
Yeah.
Well, before we wrap up, I just want to say a quick thing about Mook and Gaitok.
Yep.
Um, Mook was just a schoolgirl for Gaitok. She really has evolved to like him quite a
She
bit,
likes a man
and
with a gun. She really held a long, long shoulder contact with him there when he said
she
he had a gun. She
did.
was like, "Well."
I know. I was thinking when she was reacting, I was like, if someone I was close to was, trusted with a gun as a security guard, what would my reaction be? And I was like, I think it would be like, oh, like, I want to leave room for, oh, that's good. You were given more responsibility, but also like, oh, that's could lead to more difficult situations where you might have to shoot someone or be shot or something. So it's sort of a, high seriousness kind of thing. But she was
Yeah.
just like, oh my God, wow. And I was
Yeah.
like, huh, interesting. Yeah, I didn't expect that.
Yeah, that's a great observation. I did not think about it in that sense where like how would someone feel? Because like you can imagine if you told like a parent or something and you're like, "Oh, at my job I have a gun now." They would be like, "Oh my God." They'd be like
Yeah.
worried almost.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there might be a little bit of trying to read your excitement and validate your excitement and say like, "Oh, well, that's good." But I think it
Yeah.
would concern a lot of people, and that didn't stand out to me at the time, but you're absolutely right that it's a little weird that yeah, that kinda makes me think that maybe she's not what she seems. As wrong as I've been with trying to make these deeper predictions, there's just something off about that, like, she's playing him or something, because you think if she really cared about him, that she would be worried about him being in a more dangerous situation?
Well, she loves a dangerous man, as we know.
She does, yeah, I guess maybe she's just that transparent at she likes a bad boy. He's a little bit more of a bad boy. If he gets a motorcycle, they're getting married, and that's it.
It does seem that way because when he, was part of that scuffle with the people that robbed the hotel, I mean, she awakened towards him. That's the way I saw it. And
Yeah,
now that he has a gun, she likes it, and he's going to be hired as maybe a security guard for a street de law.
yeah.
I don't know. She digs it.
She really doesn't seem like that kind of person, but you're right that they are portraying her that way. So, God, I hate to be such a broken record and say I'm curious where all these storylines are going to go, but I just find myself naturally coming back to that conclusion where I'm like, God, what's going to happen? All of
I
these
know.
things are so interesting individually when you get down into the details. And yeah, I'm like, man, I'm really saying this same sentence a lot, but I'm like, that's what I feel. It's like I'm so fascinated with all
Yeah.
that they've created, and God, I love the show.
I know. I am too, though. I have to agree with you that I really can't wait for the next episode. And I don't know how many episodes are left, but I'm like, I hope the next one is not like the last one. Do we have two more? I don't
I
know,
know.
but
I hope
I
there's two. It feels like two. That would be a lot to wrap up in one. That
yeah.
they've done that before, because season one, I believe, was only 6. Season 2 was 7. So perhaps they're going up to 8. But they're kind of boxing themselves in with that one more episode per season every time. Because I imagine it'll have to get renewed. It's very popular and very good. But yeah, I hope there's 2 more. But I really don't know. I just think it would be a lot to wrap up in one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet.
All right. Well, yeah, that's that. Another great discussion. So if you enjoyed the episode and you're still here, be sure to subscribe. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We love reading your comments. And like the video. It really helps out a lot. Tells YouTube that you think we're worth suggesting to other people. So we'd really appreciate that. Helps out with a smaller channel like ours. And lastly, we have a podcast on this channel called Men's Search for Meaning, where we talk about all kinds of relatable facts of life. We have a lot of fun doing it. So we hope you'll join us for that. And yeah, thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next episode. Oh, very deep. The deepest of bows. Very respectful.
I wanted to show the highest respect to the episode.
To you.